This is Matt again, and in this video we're going to be talking about EQ and how to access it. Alright, so if we're wanting to look at our vocal EQ, all we have to do is hit the select, and our vocal EQ comes up. There's a couple of different parameters on here that we're going to be focusing on. First off, we're going to talk about the high pass and the low pass filters. The high pass filter is taking away any low frequencies to let all the high frequencies go in, and the low pass is the opposite, where you're letting all the low frequencies pass but getting rid of all the frequencies above it. When EQing vocals, we're going to want to take away a little of the mud using the high pass filter. So we're going to come up to about 100. That way all the low frequencies are still there, but a lot of that mud and the breathiness and the hoofing of the breathing out is going to go away. Then we're going to take away just a little bit of the high frequencies. We're going to come down to about 12,000 hertz and leave it there. That'll take away a lot of the hiss that might be existing, and it'll take away a lot of the inaudible clipping that might be coming through the channel that we can't even hear with our ears. Next, in the middle, we have all our parametric EQ bands. What that means is that the frequencies are sweepable, so we can go back and forth to determine whether or not we want a certain frequency in there or out of there. Next to it, we have the Q, which is determining how wide the band is and how narrow the band is. And then we have gain, which is going to tell us whether or not we're adding or subtracting whatever's going on. In a live scenario, when it comes to vocals, it's best to be subtractive more than we are adding to it. So if the musician or the vocalist sounds really muddy, they sound really low-endy, we're not going to want to bring up the highs, but rather we're going to take away the lows and then bring up the channel. So if we listen to it, we can hear that there's a lot of low end going on. So we're going to want to take away some of the low end. It's starting to sound a little bit better. Those low frequencies are existing, so we can still tell that is a male voice and we can hear what he is saying. Then we're going to want to take away a lot of those problem frequencies in the middle. Since mixing at a manual in this room, I've noticed that there's a lot of problems in the 500 hertz range, but I'm going to pretend I don't know that, and we're going to pinpoint exactly where we need to go. So what we're going to start out doing is we're going to make that band really, really narrow. We're going to gain it up about 7 to 10 dB so we can start to hear what that does. Yep, it sounds worse already, so we're going to sweep back and forth until we hear the problem frequency the loudest. Okay, so you hear how it gets very, very mid-rangey, sounds very ugly. We're going to want to immediately take that away. Spread out that Q a little bit so it sounds a little bit more natural. And it sounds a lot better in the lower range. The next thing we're going to want to do is take away a little bit that nasaliness that just comes from singing close to the microphone. Now they can't sing far away from the microphone because it's a live situation, and that will introduce a lot of feedback. So this is how we take care of it. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to get really narrow. We're going to go up and we're going to gain it up, and we're going to sweep back and forth until we hear the nasaliness the most. To me it sounds like it's about there at about 3K. Sometimes there's a lot of sibilance in the high end, and to quickly adjust that, we can just bring down the highs somewhere around 6K. So in a live situation, I've come here very quickly, and I can be done very quickly so I can move on to the next channel. If I want to get it any more specifically, I'll come back to it later when everything else is done. Some of the mistakes that I see a lot while mixing, especially on vocals, is the high pass. Like I said before, the high pass is when I take away all the low frequencies and let only the highs through. What some people do to address the low end situation, they'll keep sweeping up the low band until they start to sound like a radio, but now all the low end's gone, so they think they're done. This is a problem because they don't sound like a human voice anymore. The human voice actually exists in that range, so it needs to still be there. It may need to be reduced, which we can do with the parametric frequencies, but it doesn't need to be taken away completely. And that concludes this video. Thank you for listening, and happy mixing.